Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, March 14th. Welcome to our video commentary. Today we're going to talk about a couple of big stories, last night's election in Pennsylvania and the latest on SB-4. Let's begin with SB-4. For those of you who are not familiar with SB-4, SB-4 was a law that was passed by Texas in 2017. It pretty much went down along party lines, and it was passed and signed by the governor, making sanctuary cities basically illegal in Texas, basically saying that local authorities have to cooperate with federal authorities. There was a judge in South Texas who said that the law was unconstitutional. Then it worked its way through a few legal steps, and now it went to an appeals court in New Orleans, and that district court, appeals court, has basically said that SBA is okay, or SB-4 is okay. It's always a lot more complicated than that with legal opinions, but that's basically the bottom line. Now, that's a huge victory for Governor Abbott, particularly running for re-election, and it's also a big victory, I think, for the rule of law. There were many, many Democrats, as well as some people in the media, who tried to make this into a debate about immigration. And it was never really about immigration. It was about simply respecting federal law at the state level. We live in a country where the federal law is supreme. And ever since the Civil War, that's been the law of the land, or at least the practice of the land. And SB-4, or sanctuary cities, are completely illegal. And I see that the Trump administration is taking a very strong position against California. I hope it goes further than just talking about it. It probably will. But I think this decision by the appeals court is a huge boost to those of us who believe that federal law has to be respected at the local level as well as the state level. I suppose the next thing could be the Supreme Court, and I'm hoping they take it to the Supreme Court, because I think that would give the Supreme Court an opportunity to issue an opinion for once and for all, making these sanctuary cities a problem, illegal, and reminding everybody that we live in a country of laws, not a country of, slogans or whatever it may be. Again, SB-4 was never about immigration. It was simply the recognition that we have to respect federal law at the district, at the local, at the state level. Now, the other story, and it's still a developing story, is what happened in Pennsylvania last night, where they had an election. And I guess they're still counting votes. My guess is that the Democrat will win, probably between 500 and 1,000 votes. I mean, it's an amazing election. Something like 230 or 240,000 people voted, and the election is being decided by less than 1,000 votes. I mean, it is really remarkably close. I don't know what the recount procedures are in Pennsylvania. My guess, as I said before, is that the Democrat will win this, despite all the recounts, and he will be the congressman for that district. I think, to me, the lesson of that particular election is that when you have an election where the two candidates really don't disagree on any major issues, I mean, this Democrat, Connor Lamb in that district, everything he said was pretty much of a Republican message. I mean, in many ways, this election came down to being, it's almost like a Republican primary, where you had two people who basically agreed on all the major issues, and it kind of came down to a personality contest, and obviously Connor Lamb was more telegenic, more personable, and just a better candidate, to call it like it is. So it was kind of like a Republican primary. What does it really mean? It's hard for me to see a big meaning out of this election. Even if the Republican had won, it's still very difficult to have a big meaning out of this election, because unless the Republican had won by 10 or 15 points, it still would have been very close. So I think the meaning of this election is really not that much of a meaning. And if there is a certain message out of the election, it goes to the Democrats, and that is, if you want to win or be competitive in many of these rural districts, you're going to have to run people like Connor Lamb. In other words, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, supporter of Trump, and someone who doesn't want anything to do with what's going on in the National Democrat Party. I think that's really the lesson here, if you want to look for any particular lesson. I'm not sure the Democrats will learn that lesson, but that is really the lesson of this district. I suppose there is another lesson too for us Republicans, and that is you cannot assume anything. Just because a district went one way the last time, it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll go that way again. Because at the end of the day, these local elections are very much about the personalities involved. I mean, the previous congressman in this district was a very popular Republican who was elected over and over and over again. So personality has a lot to do with it in these local elections. By the way, speaking of local elections, the Republicans won a special election in Tennessee for the state Senate there. And that was very much of a traditional Democrat-Republican election, and the Republican won that one easily. So there's no great ideological message here. It really comes down to who has a better candidate and who has a candidate who can make his case a little bit better. And I think in that district, the Democrats clearly had a better candidate. Thank you for watching. We have all of these on YouTube. We have them on my Twitter, and we also have them on my blog. Bye-bye, everybody.